This video will reveal 30 wild foods the Gambino family actually ate while running one of the most powerful crime empires in American history. We're talking about the family that controlled New York for decades, from Carlo Gambino, who entered this country as a stowaway surviving on nothing but anchovies and wine, to Paul Castellano, who built a near monopoly over the entire New York meat supply, to John Gotti, who wore $5,000 suits and ate at rows and secretly loved Cracker Barrel. These aren't invented stories, these are documented meals, recorded conversations, memoirs, and FBI surveillance notes. Let's get into it. Number 30, anchovies and wine. This is where the Gambino family's story with food actually starts. In December 1921, a 19-year-old Carlo Gambino snuck onto a freighter in Palermo, Sicily, heading for America. He had no papers, no ticket, and no seat. For the entire crossing, he survived on what he could hide: anchovies and wine. That's it. He arrived at Norfolk, Virginia, and walked into one of the greatest criminal careers in American history, fed on salted fish and cheap red wine. That detail was documented and is confirmed by multiple historical sources. The man, who would later be called the boss of bosses, started with nothing on his plate. Number 29, caponata. Gambino came from Palermo, and Palermo means caponata. This Sicilian staple, fried eggplant, celery, capers, olives, tomato, and red wine vinegar cooked down into a sweet and sour relish, was standard in every Sicilian mob household. It kept for weeks in a cool room, got better every day, and showed up on every table from Brooklyn to Bath Beach. The Gambino family was Sicilian to the bone, and this dish came with them from the old country. Number 28. Hard Italian bread. Every morning in every Gambino-connected household in Brooklyn, the day started with pane di casa, dense, thick-crusted bread bought from a local bakery that, more often than not, was run by someone who owed somebody a favor. No butter, no olive oil, just bread torn by hand with a glass of homemade wine. Simple, non-negotiable. Number 27, Sunday gravy. The Gambino family's sacred weekly ritual. The pot went on at dawn: olive oil, garlic, San Marzano tomatoes, pork ribs, sausage, meatballs, braciole. It simmered 6 to 8 hours. By 3 p.m., the whole building smelled like it. Carlo Gambino, according to a 1963 newspaper report, considered hosting family at his Long Island home in Massapequa his favorite diversion, and his wife Catherine did the cooking herself when associates came to call. Sunday dinner was not business. Sunday was family. Number 26, ossobuco. As the Gambinos climbed in wealth and status, so did the food. Ossobuco, braised veal shanks, slow-cooked in white wine and broth, finished with gremolata, became the dish Carlo Gambino was documented to favor above almost any other meat dish. He ate it slowly, worked the marrow from the bone with a small spoon, and used the deliberate pace of the meal itself to demonstrate the patience that kept him in power for 19 years without spending a single day in prison after 1938. Number 25, antipasto platter. Before any sit-down, business or family, the table had to be covered first. Prosciutto sliced paper-thin, aged provolone, roasted peppers in olive oil, marinated artichokes, anchovies curled around capers. In the Gambino world, as in all 5 families' culture, you did not discuss anything until the antipasto arrived. The boss reached for something first. That was the rule. Number 24, cured meats and aged cheeses. Every Gambino-connected household had a cantina in the basement, a cold room where soppressata, capicola, and pecorino romano hung from the ceiling on ropes for months. Carlo Gambino's family operated in a Sicilian tradition where a wheel of aged cheese was a gift with weight behind it. Gifting a whole salami wrapped in butcher paper meant respect. Receiving one meant you were trusted. Number 23. Arancini. Sicilian rice balls stuffed with ragu, peas and mozzarella, then fried. These took all day to make properly, risotto cooked and cooled overnight, meat sauce simmered for hours, fresh breadcrumbs. They were the social food of Sicilian mob circles, the food that appeared when crews gathered, when card games ran long, when negotiations needed something to eat that wasn't a full sit-down meal. 2 arancini filled a man for hours, no fork required. Number 22. Pasta e fagioli, known in every Brooklyn Italian household as pasta fazool, ditalini pasta with cannellini beans, tomato, garlic, and a pork rind for depth. This was Sicilian working-class food at its core, cheap to make, impossible to fake. The beans cooked separately, the pasta added only at the last moment, or it turned to mush. In Gambino crews social clubs in Brooklyn and Queens, a pot of fazool was always going. Number 21. Minestrone. 4 hours minimum. Cannellini beans, kale, carrot, celery, potato, a parmesan rind in the pot. The sofrito, onions and garlic fried in rendered pork fat until golden, was the base. This was the dish that fed anyone who walked through the door, no questions asked. It was ancient Sicilian law. You feed who enters your house. The Gambino family operated by that rule. A soldier who walked into a social club hungry walked out full. Number 20. Soppressata. The hard, dark red spiced salami made from the best cuts of pork, cured in Gambino family basements for 3 to 6 months. Each family had its own ratio of black pepper, red pepper flakes, garlic, and red wine. Cutting into a new soppressata was a small ceremony, reserved for Easter, a christening, a special gathering. The Gambino family produced their own. Gifting one was a statement of alliance. Making a bad one damaged your reputation in the neighborhood for years. Number 19. Chicken cacciatore. John Gotti's personal comfort food. According to his daughter Victoria, Gotti sat down to his wife's homemade chicken cacciatore for Sunday dinner at his Queen's home. Chicken slow-braised with tomatoes, mushrooms, olives and red wine. He said, "Butch, this is really good," and then noticed what wine she'd used in the sauce. The dish was everything the Gambino culture valued: simple ingredients, long cooking time, made at home, by family. Number 18. Eggplant parmigiana. Layers of salted and fried eggplant, fresh tomato sauce, mozzarella, basil, baked until the cheese blistered. Albert Anastasia, the feared boss who ran what became the Gambino family before Carlo took over, was documented ordering eggplant parmigiana at Patsy's Italian restaurant in Manhattan. The detail that matters, salting the eggplant first to draw out bitterness, was the step most home cooks skipped. Gambino-era women never skipped it. Number 17. Veal parmigiana. The dish that defined mob prosperity in Brooklyn restaurants. At Bamonte's, the old-school Brooklyn restaurant opened since 1900 and frequented by Gambino family figures, a veal parmigiana cost 90 cents in the late 1920s. That was nearly a full day's wages for an average worker. Ordering it without blinking said one thing: you had money. The veal cutlet had to be pounded thin, breaded, fried, and topped generously, and it had to extend past the edges of the plate, or it wasn't right. Number 16. Braciole. Thin slices of beef rolled around a filling of breadcrumbs, pine nuts, raisins, garlic, parsley, grated cheese, and a thin layer of prosciutto. tied with butcher's twine and dropped into the Sunday gravy pot before dawn. 6 hours later they came out falling apart, having given everything to the sauce. Braciole appeared on every Gambino Sunday table alongside meatballs and sausages. The women who made them well were praised openly. The women who made them poorly received silence. And in that culture, silence was judgment. Number 15, prime sirloin at Sparks Steakhouse. Paul Castellano, Carlo Gambino's cousin, brother-in-law and chosen successor, was one of the most meat-knowledgeable men in New York. His father was a butcher in Brooklyn. By the 1970s and 80s, Castellano had built a near monopoly on the New York metro area's meat and poultry distribution through companies including Dial Poultry and Blue Ribbon Meats, which supplied Waldbaum's and Key Foods supermarket chains. On December 16, 1985, Castellano arrived at Sparks Steakhouse in Midtown Manhattan for an early dinner at 5:16 p.m. He never made it inside. John Gotti's assassins shot him 6 times as he stepped out of his car. The last meal he never ate was prime sirloin. Number 14. Poultry, Blue Ribbon Meats. This one isn't just food, it's a criminal enterprise built around food. Castellano and his sons controlled the wholesale chicken and poultry business across New York through their companies. They forced supermarket chains to carry their brands. They passed off expired and tainted meat as USDA-grade product through chemical methods. The family ran meat distribution like a Fortune 500 company. Food wasn't just what Gambino men ate, it was one of their primary sources of income. Number 13, Clams Casino. Fresh little neck clams on the half shell topped with bacon, bell peppers, breadcrumbs and garlic, then broiled. Standard fare at every mob-connected clam house in the New York area. This was finger food designed for social clubs and bars. You could eat standing up, hold a conversation, not need a table. Umberto's Clam House on Mulberry Street served it throughout the Gambino era. The combination of briny clam, smoky bacon, and sharp garlic became as Italian-American as anything that came from Sicily. Number 12, linguine with white clam sauce. Fresh clams, garlic, white wine, parsley, olive oil, red pepper flakes tossed with al dente linguine. 2 rules. The pasta had to be cooked perfectly, and no cheese, ever. Putting cheese on seafood pasta was a violation at any proper Italian table. This dish was eaten immediately the moment it left the pan. Carlo Gambino ran labor racketeering operations at the New York waterfront for decades. The men who controlled the docks controlled the clams. Number 11. Meatballs, not small ones. Italian-American meatballs the size of tennis balls, a mix of beef, pork and veal bound with breadcrumbs soaked in milk, eggs, parsley, garlic and grated parmigiano. The milk-soaked bread kept them tender through hours of simmering in Sunday gravy. Every Gambino crew kitchen had its own ratio, passed down through the maternal line. Rao's restaurant in East Harlem, which served John Gotti and other Gambino figures, became famous for a meatball recipe closely guarded and considered by many the standard against which all others were judged. Number 10. Rao's house specialties, baked clams, pork chops, lemon chicken. Rao's at 114th Street in East Harlem opened in 1896 and had only 10 or 11 tables. Getting a seat required knowing someone. John Gotti ate there. Gambino associates held tables as regulars. The menu never had a printed list. The waiter told you what was available that night: baked clams, pasta with sausage and broccoli rabe, pork chops, lemon chicken, meatballs. The food was exactly what you'd eat in an Italian grandmother's kitchen, and that was the point. Rao's was private in the way a mob social club was private. Number 9. Espresso and biscotti. After every meal after the grappa bottle appeared came the espresso, thick, black, 2 sips, served in tiny cups. The biscotti were baked twice until hard as stone, designed specifically for dunking. In the Gambino world, coffee was the signal. If the boss poured your cup first, you were in good standing. If you poured your own, you might not understand yet that something had gone wrong. The meal itself ended when the last cup was finished. Number 8. Italian ricotta cheesecake. Dense low, lightly sweetened with lemon zest, and sometimes candied orange. Not the American cream cheese version, the Sicilian version, more custard than cake. Veniero's Pasticceria on East 11th Street, open since 1894, supplied this to Gambino-era gatherings in Manhattan. A whole cheesecake cost about $1 in the late 1920s, more than most working families spent on food in a day. It appeared at the end of every christening, every wedding, every important dinner. Number 7. Sfogliatelle. The shell-shaped Neapolitan pastry with hundreds of crisp layers, filled with sweetened ricotta and candied orange peel. Each one took skilled hands and serious time. Ferrara Bakery on Grand Street, open since 1892, supplied them to Gambino-connected families in Manhattan. The shells had to shatter when you bit them, sending flakes across your shirt. That was the point. For a moment, everyone at the table was equal, boss and soldier, both covered in powdered sugar. Number 6. Zeppole. Fried dough balls dusted with powdered sugar, sold at every Italian street festival. Every September, the Feast of San Gennaro on Mulberry Street ran on zeppole. Every March 19th, the Feast of San Giuseppe. Gambino-connected men operated zeppole carts as legitimate business fronts, and the cash-heavy transactions made them useful for moving money. Young soldiers working the carts were learning the mechanics of running a cash operation. 6 zeppole for 10 cents in the 1920s, thousands of bags a day, all of it accounted for, and some of it not. Number 5. Sausage and peppers. Italian fennel sausages, sweet or hot, fried with bell peppers and onions until caramelized and charred, stuffed into a hero roll. Street food, feast food. The Feast of San Gennaro moved more sausage and peppers than any other dish every year. Every cart at every Gambino territory feast paid tribute up the chain. It was not fancy. It was pure economics. Cheap ingredients, high volume, cash only, protection built into every transaction. Number 4. Cracker Barrel chicken and biscuits. John Gotti, the Dapper Don. $5,000 suits, Rouse dinners, perfect hair. And his actual favorite restaurant? Cracker Barrel. This is confirmed. According to a piece published by Jeffrey Goldberg in Slate, Gotti's sister Victoria recounted driving from the federal prison in Marion, Illinois, after visiting their father, and John Gotti Jr. directing them to a Cracker Barrel. He ordered chicken and biscuits and country fried steak. A friend confirmed it. When asked about this, one of Gotti's associates gave the most honest answer possible. Hey, how much Italian food can you eat? The Dapper Don liked chicken and biscuits. Number 3. Cannoli. The undisputed centerpiece of Gambino family food culture. Crisp fried shells filled with sweetened ricotta, sometimes studded with chocolate chips or candied citron and dusted with powdered sugar. The shells had to be filled at the last possible moment or they went soft. The ricotta had to be fresh, often drained overnight. Ferrara Bakery and Veniero's competed for the title of Best Cannoli in Manhattan, and Gambino-connected families had fierce opinions about which was superior. A single cannolo cost 10 cents in the 1920s. A dozen for a Sunday dinner cost $1. Every Gambino wedding, baptism, first communion, and funeral featured cannoli at the center of the dessert table. Number 2, homemade red wine. Not a dish, a constant. Every Gambino-era Sicilian household produced its own wine in the basement. Grapes came from distributors in the Italian market. The wine was rough, dark, and strong. It appeared at every meal, every meeting, every celebration. It was the table drink that accompanied everything on this list from number 30 to number 1. Carlo Gambino himself was known to drink homemade red wine at home with his wife, Catherine. The family that arrived making wine was still making it decades later. Number 1, the last meal that never happened. Paul Castellano, head of the most powerful crime family in America, arrived at Sparks Steakhouse on East 46th Street in Manhattan on December 16th, 1985, to have dinner. He never walked through the door. He was shot 6 times getting out of his car. The menu at Sparks that night included prime sirloin, filet mignon, sliced steak with bordelaise sauce, and shrimp cocktail. Castellano, whose father was a butcher, who grew up cutting meat, who built an empire around the meat supply of New York City, never ate his last steak. 4 gunmen in trench coats and Russian-style hats made sure of it. John Gotti watched from a car across the street. The Gambino empire changed hands that evening outside a steakhouse on a plate that stayed empty. 30 foods, 5 decades of power. One crime family that went from a teenager smuggled across the Atlantic on anchovies and wine to the boss of bosses who controlled the entire New York meat supply and got killed outside a steakhouse. The food wasn't decoration. It was culture. It was business. It was the table where deals were made, alliances formed, and sentences delivered, sometimes in silence, over a plate of braciole that nobody complimented. If this video got under your skin, subscribe, because there's more history like this that nobody taught you in school,